What's going on, Pokemon Go trainers? Welcome to episode 19 of the Lured Up Creator Series, the podcast bringing your favorite content creators to talk about their work, process, and the game that brings Pokemon Go. Lured Up is part of the Pokemon Professor Network, and today is Saturday, October 19th, 2020. I'm your host, Ken Pescator, and this week I'm excited to be joined by the swag man himself, Ryan Swag. Yo, what's up, man? How are you, dude?
Not a whole lot. Thank you for having me on the show here today.
The level of chill already exuding from your voice. It's so good. I'm so excited that you're here, man. Thanks so much for spending some time with me. I look forward to digging in a little bit and getting to know you. How you been?
Yeah, I've been doing, I guess I'd say I've been a bit better, but I've been doing pretty good overall.
Good. Okay. That's good. Good overall is a good thing. I could definitely get down with that. But why don't we start with the basics? Introduce yourself, let us know where you're from, tell us a little bit about what you do, and we'll kind of go through the basics and then start digging into what you've done from a content perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Ryan Swag. My legal last name is actually Swag, and I'm from Wisconsin.
Wait, hard stop. Really?
Yeah.
That's fucking awesome. Okay.
Yeah, the real secret that people don't know is my first name actually isn't Ryan.
I'm so confused and I don't care. It's so good.
All right, but I am from Wisconsin. That is a fact. And yeah, I write for Game Press. I do YouTube videos, both covering Pokemon Go. And then I also work as a nurse.
How do you have time to do anything?
All right. I mean, lately I haven't had a whole lot of time for anything, but it's been pretty easy. You know, a lot of the Pokemon Go content writes itself, especially if you're just covering like news updates. You just have to talk about what was put out there, and then, you know, having a bunch of knowledge and use the simulators and knowing how to find out interesting information about, you know, different updates and stuff like that. You can put your own kind of curve on it pretty quickly. The only time it gets to be time consuming is when I'm trying to make like infographics or like graphs and stuff like that. Then it can be a little bit.
Right. I mean, one of the things I definitely want to dig into is, especially coming from a PvP perspective, is how you gather all this data and how you put everything together to know what's what. And there's so many different resources that are available out there, whether it's Game Press or other third parties, things like that. So I'm definitely looking forward to talking about that whole area of things. But let's start with the true basics. When were you first introduced to Pokemon? Was Pokemon Go your first introduction, or do you have kind of a history with the franchise going back?
I've got some history with the franchise here, yeah. I grew up with Pokemon, you know, watching the cartoon show. Actually, I'd go to a daycare, and because of the time my dad would have to go to work, I'd actually miss the show, but my old man, he would record the episodes for me. So when I'd get home, I get to check them out.
Hell so, yeah, that's awesome.
Got the Pokemon life going on.
Nice. All right. Well, that's so you've been a long time fan. That's fantastic. And then what was your introduction to Pokemon Go like? Did you play Pokemon Go on day one?
Oh man, I played Pokemon Go before day one. I wasn't a beta tester, but
yes,
when
nice.
That like APK download came out, I was on it and I was hitting the streets immediately. Like I was waiting for this game the moment I heard about it.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, very cool. That's great. And how do you like to play the game? Like I always like asking this question. On camera, off camera, when you're creating content or when you're just playing, what are the ways you like to engage with the game?
Oh yeah. I'd say how I engage with the game has definitely changed over time. When the game came out, it was all about that gym control. So I'd usually round up my friends, hop in the swag van, as we called it, and we'd just like take over the city. And I do a lot of like, you know, battle plan drawing out and like, you know, coordinating with people from different cities and stuff like that to try to maintain our gym turf and fight these turf wars. But then the gyms changed, and that was no longer an aspect of the game. It became more focused on like the raids. So then I guess my way of playing the game was mostly like number crunching and making infographics to help people, you know, fight raids better. And, I'm not like a everyday kind of player. I'm not like, I don't know, it's not very enjoyable to drive out to the Pokemon Go hotspot and then walk around for like 2 hours and then drive back. So usually when I play, it's usually like, 2, 3 times a week for like a concentrated period of time.
Right, right. Well, I guess, and I would imagine that the onslaught of events and kind of the focused gameplay funnel that Niantic provides probably helps out with that, with giving you a little bit more of a direction of what to play and how to play. Where before it was like, before we had events overlapping every freaking week, it was like, well, what are we gonna do? I guess we're just gonna go out and catch Pokemon. We didn't really have that direction, but yeah, now it's like, all right, Friday I could do this, Saturday I could do this, Tuesday I could do this. So, but yeah, the game has changed so much over the years, and it has been cool following your content and seeing like, looking at raid infographics and then to like all the like the number crunching thing. You hit the nail on the head. I mean, you were always all about gathering that data and educating the community, which I thought was really cool, to help people out, whether it was for raids or the gym thing. I mean, I was just having a conversation about like the 10 stack of Blissies that we used to like put in gyms just to piss people off. Like, people don't realize that what that old gym system was like. It was totally different. Cashing out when you wanted, like it was a very, very interesting dynamic. But yeah, it's definitely changed a lot, and you've been able to follow that progression through your content, I think, because I scrolled back, on your videos and like looked back, and I was like, oh shit, he's got stuff in here for gyms, he's got stuff for raids, and it's like most people, may recognize, your content recently or more recently from PvP. So, when was the last time you watched your first video? Like the first the first video you ever made? Have you gone back and looked at that?
Oh, I have. It's bad.
It's not
Like I
I loved it. It was so good.
I had definitely a persona going on that has become a lot more natural over time, but in the beginning it's just like, oh God, Ryan, like good job.
That's funny. So when did you first get into actually creating content? When the game first came out, did you know right away that you wanted to make content about it, or was there something that triggered you or motivated you to say, I want to start creating? Or, how did that whole thing, work out?
Yeah, I'd say it was a bit of a progression over time because I very quickly became like the mafia king of the gyms in my hometown,
Nice.
back in 2016. And there was a definite like strategy and finesse in, motivating like the more casual players to get involved in the whole gym control thing. So in order to convey that information to them better, I'd make these infographics, and to make good infographics, I'd have to crunch numbers well and stuff like that. So it was a bit of a process. But the better I got at crunching the numbers and figuring out, the metagame and all that kind of stuff, the better I got at it and the more detailed information I could create for people. And then it took a while. I think it was like maybe 6 months or greater before I started posting on Reddit, because for the longest time I was like super paranoid that if I started sharing this information with the world, then, those filthy red blues, they'd get a hold of my secret tech, and then they'd use it against me. And, well, then I would be a fool, But there came a point where I realized that in my area, Team Instinct was dominating so hard that if I did put this information out there, because like all the red blues that I guess quote unquote matter as far as gym control mattered, knew my name. And if there was some crazy infographic or detailed analysis and it had my name on it, well, then it would just intimidate them further because they're like, oh, geez, we're up against that guy,
Yes.
And very quickly, my information became pretty popular on Reddit, making articles and infographics. People really appreciated it. And then eventually that caught the eye of Game Press. So then I started writing for them. And then after writing articles and making infographics for so long and seeing YouTubers like using my information for their YouTube videos, I was like, why don't I do that too? And then I can convey this information to people with an audio visual kind of medium. They don't have to read. They can just listen to what I'm saying with a graphic put with it. And so yeah, I felt that would help educate the masses as far as the game goes.
That's actually a pretty interesting progression. One that's probably unique in the in this space, coming from someone. And now and it's Reddit is its own monster. Now I definitely want to get into Reddit, but it seems that typically if people are getting into video production and making videos, the first thing they do is make the videos. So it's really cool to hear, like, okay, I was making infographics, and then you're seeing your own shit, like, talked about in other videos, and it's like, wait a second, I should be doing this. That's a pretty cool thing, man. That's really cool. And how would you say that your content over the years, and I guess this kind of ebbs and flows with the game, but how would you say your content over the years has changed in general?
Well, I mean, since the gym system has changed so much, there's definitely a lot less of a focus on that. As far as PvP is concerned, that's also like a whole new game mode, a whole new element. And I'd say my initial model for that, which is like, the paper, scissors, rock, lizard, Spock kind of infographics, was a pretty good starting point. And I've tried to like adapt that and make it better, more easy for people to understand over the years. So it can be a little bit tricky, balancing like making it simple to understand, but also making it like detailed at the same time. So I've been, trying out like different things in regards to that. And then when it comes to raids, just keeping with the same raid graphics, but, different types of bonuses come into play. So then trying to convey that in the graphs is something that has been, worked on over time. I'd say for the most part, though, like for each type of game mode, my content has remained relatively the same. Any nuances I find are just like, a new type of bonus or like some new gimmick or something that I feel should be highlighted. So it hasn't changed a whole lot. It's just mostly like new game modes coming out, different meta games.
And what about the audience? How is there, do you find that there's a big difference between the audience of people that are looking for raid information versus the audience of that's looking for PvP? Are those different people, and do you kind of have to have a different approach when you're creating content for those two audiences?
That's kind of hard to say. I mean, there's definitely a stark difference between, GBL players and Silph Arena players. But as far as like raid versus PvP goes, I'd say my raid information, well, I'd say all of my information in general, I try to appeal to a more casual audience, even though the information can be pretty technical at times. But I try to break it down and simplify it so anybody could benefit from the information. So if you are big into PvP and you check out a Swag Tips video on like Giratina, well, I'll tell you how to beat Giratina, and I'll tell you how useful it is for raids and PvP and stuff like that. And you don't have to get like super hardcore into raids in order to, come out of that knowing more about how to beat Giratina. You know what I mean? And if you are a raid player, you'd come out of that having some PvP information. And now that we've got GBL, so raid PvP information is a lot more relevant to the casual player. Well, then that can help them get an info bump too. So I guess I try to be the all-around, like, wholesome Pokemon Go player, just educating viewers on about everything, No,
that's a great perspective, and I never really thought about that. And it's like, when it comes to the game, I've always been a proponent of saying, like, yeah, there's going to be different systems in the game, and those systems kind of feed each other. It's like, I want to play in PvP, I need Stardust. In order to get the Stardust, I have to get out there and grind. If I'm going to go out there and grind, I might as well be hatching eggs. There's, so all these different systems kind of compound and flow into each other. Now, from a content perspective, that I never really thought of that. So that's actually a really cool perspective of saying, like, yeah, there is relevance to raid information in a PvP space because they kind of all work hand in hand. And I think that having that generalist philosophy is really cool. I think that that's just a unique way to kind of think of it. And I'm confident in saying that a lot of creators often, whether they want to or not, they kind of limit themselves a bit by creating one style of content or one type of content. And this game is so big. So looking at it from that perspective, it makes a lot of sense from a content creator perspective to have that diversification and content mix, because it all kind of does flow through that same strainer, of the game. And that makes a lot of sense. That's a really fucking cool angle to look at it. Now, PvP, it can get a little bit intimidating. It can get a little daunting because there is numbers and there is a lot of data and preparation that's kind of needed. And you've already touched on how when you create content, you're looking at it from the angle of how can I make this content for the everyday player and have it basic enough where they can understand it, but also detailed enough where if someone's, looking for more depth, they can also get it out of that same content. Is that a hard kind of juggling match to pull that off and put that vibe into all your videos?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like if you look at any of my PvP infographics, I've got the arrows telling you what counters what and which Pokemon are associated with which groups, but like if you actually know the metagame, there'll be some Pokemon that don't exactly fit that mold perfectly, but to that end, I make a little disclaimer in just about every PvP video I make where I have an infographic like that. I like to remind players that, not everything is going to fit that mold, but they'll fit like the general style or the general idea. So that can be pretty tricky. Like if people are just looking for an infographic and then they don't understand the context that there are some mold breakers that are worked in there. And then the alternative, of course, is to remove the mold breakers and then put them off to the side and say that they're like, oh, these are mold breakers. Well, then doing that, then your graphic starts to become very text heavy. And then it's kind of hard to make it, visually appealing and, I guess simplified. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And then
sure.
Another way, too, is to like have the mold breakers exist in their own space on the graphic, but then also have arrows associated with them. But then it gets to be really messy, and then you're just like, okay, what am I following here? Like, what really matters in the meta? So, yeah, it's definitely a really tricky balancing act because, I don't know, and then on top of that, you'll find one breakpoint, or maybe you'll find some sort of Pokemon that you didn't consider, or maybe a PvPoke simulation is ever so slightly off in context, and then you realize that something's actually reversed or something doesn't fit that mold perfectly anymore, and then you gotta you gotta start all over again almost.
That's
it can be tricky.
No, that's and from a podcast perspective, I kind of run into that a lot too, because there's a lot of new listeners that we have that, oh, I love Pokemon Go. I want to find content. I want to consume content. They search, Pokemon Go in the podcast space, and we pop up, and then, they listen, and it's very hard for me to remember that the lingo and the nicknames, and it's not universally accepted and understood by everyone. So I sometimes have to catch myself and say, let me make a little bit more sense of this without just using, some community term that we've come up with to make sure that everyone kind of understands. So yeah, I feel you on that. And definitely from a visual perspective, I can see how that could be challenging with an infographic, especially when you start getting into arrows, because then, I'm from Jersey, and it's like our highway signs are like crazy. To make a left, you got to make a right. God. It's like, I kind of get that vibe sometimes. I look at some of these other infographics out there, and it's like, holy shit, it's like a fucking maze. Like I'm trying to follow like a squiggly line to like see what goes with what. So yeah, that's an interesting take. And I think that you pull that off really well of balancing that for the person just looking for quick info and the person that's looking for an in-depth info. You're providing them with both with the same medium. I dig that. That's totally cool. Now, you mentioned GamePress. How did that whole thing come about? They literally saw your content out there? Was it through Reddit?
Yeah, it was through Reddit. Yeah, they just found me, and they're like, hey, that you writing this on Reddit, how about you do that for us? And then we pay you. And I was like, what, you guys want to pay me to do what I'm already doing like an insane madman, well, all right, yeah, sure, why not? So yeah, that's how that went down.
That's solid. I mean, we've had people from Game Press on Lured Up, and I've been a big fan of their site. And they have some incredible tools on that site that I'm sure when you're crunching numbers, you're probably using a lot of Game Press tools, right? Because they have such awesome resources available on their site.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like if I'm trying to compare move sets for people, using their, pages for the different attacks, like for fast moves, I can scroll and, easily see the differences between the fast moves. And then you got the DPS TDO spreadsheet, which is a fun go-to tool to just tell people why something's good in raids or not. And then you got the breakpoint calculator and the bulk point calculator, if you want to get those extra raid details. And if I'm doing like a graph or, an article on a raid, well, people want to know what those juicy breakpoints are. So where to find them? Game Press, I guess.
That's solid. Yeah, we when on the Lured Up show proper, when we do our raid guides, we typically are pulling data, from G2G.media, and what they do is they take an aggregate. So they'll look at stuff coming from like GoHub and PokeBattler and Game Press, and they put like this aggregate list together. And it's always interesting to see what sites put what Pokemon where in the rankings. And it's like I've always had this little thing that I would always trust Game Press a little bit more on the raid side of things, because I know that all that data it's backed up by all that data and those breakpoints, and that's killer. And I mean, shit, breakpoints are something that we've talked about in the show, and it makes some people's heads explode. They just it's such a crazy concept where it's just like, hey, I just want to fucking pick a Pokemon I like and go raiding. But yeah, once you start getting into like breakpoints and things like that, it's nice to have available resources at your fingertips, and Game Press has done a good job with that. Now, where is Game Press right now? Like, I don't see them too much on social. I know that there's still articles coming out. I know there's still stuff being created on the site, and Pokemon Go is just one game of many games that Game Press covers. What's the latest with Game Press?
Um, Good question. uh, so yeah, I've been picking up a lot of shifts at work lately for nursing. In Wisconsin, the Corona situation is getting a little out of hand here. So I let Game Press know that I'm not going to be around as much for the next couple months. So I haven't been following, the Game Press chat too closely. But they've been putting out articles on all the new stuff as per usual, following the news. We got Houndoom raid guides. I think somebody wrote an article recently on like how Hydreigon could be even more powerful than it is now if it got a couple move revamps and stuff. So I've got my eye on them a little bit. I try to share them with my social medias where I can. But definitely I've kind of taken a little bit of a step back right now. So not completely up to speed with what's going on with Game Press.
No, well, and it's like anytime I speak with anyone that works in, essential working, and especially if they're working in the medical field, it's like I always give them salute. So fucking good on you, man. And we definitely appreciate you if you're putting in the work, in your community to in nursing. That's phenomenal, man. We really appreciate that. That's good stuff.
Thank you.
So let's talk PvP. I think that PvP is probably, when it comes to, your content and especially your persona, and I want to talk about that a little bit again, going back to that first video, with the whole Swagman thing, which I fucking love, but PvP is a big part of your mix, of your content mix. And whenever I talk to anyone that creates PvP content, I have to ask them, with how delicate and, I mean, really unstable the game is right now in PvP, how does that impact creating content about PvP when the game itself is kind of, fighting against you in a certain capacity? Do you run into roadblocks when, you're creating content about PvP when the shit just doesn't work?
I try to take it in stride, I did have this one battle once where I overcame some sort of lag. It was back when there was like a glitch where your Pokemon would just stop attacking for some reason, and then you just lose because you can't attack anymore. But somehow I broke the glitch, like I broke free of it, so then I made a video on that, and that was pretty fun. But yeah, I guess in general, like if I'm making like a team showcase type video or something like that, then I'll just not use clips where lag happens or where lag dramatically affects the game because it's like nobody really wants to see that. Um, I guess something that's kind of annoying with the glitches too is it's kind of hard to keep up with what the game mechanics are at any given point in time because like is it a glitch? Is it a feature? How frequent does this glitch feature happen to the point where should we consider it to be like part of the way you play? Like you got the dirty swap, as some people would call it, where you'd get the charge move priority tie, and then you could swap before your opponent would use their charge move after you used your charge move. So it was like, is that something you should prepare for? Is that something you should strategize with? Is it like a dirty exploit? Are you cheating if you do that? Well, if it's part of the game right now, it's part of the game. So it's just, it can be tricky in that respect. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's no manual, there's no game manual, and it's like mechanics have changed over time, and I've seen people talking about piggybacking kind of happening again recently, and it's like, well, is this what is supposed to happen? Like what? Yeah, no one really knows. No one. That's another great point. It's like, is this part of the game? Is it an exploit? Is it a bug? Like where is it? There's no manual, so we really don't know, and it's kind of left into the community's hands to make sense of it, which is fucking impossible because what we're not making the games, so we don't know what's what. But yeah, I definitely feel you on that, and where do you think the balance kind of is from a content perspective between GBL and Silph? Because I think, where I would consume the majority of your content, going back to early Silph, was I would rely on your content to make sense of these metas. And you did a fantastic job of making sense of these metas for someone like me who doesn't eat, sleep, and shit PvP, but I'm still very interested in it. And then GBL comes along, and it's like for the masses, and everyone's playing GBL, but it's a different take on PvP. How do you think that those two things, GBL and Silph, coexist from a content perspective for a creator? Like, do you ever see yourself kind of battling with how you should create content or what type of content you should make between those two?
Well, I guess when it comes to Silph content, it's really time sensitive as far as how much people are going to be interested in it. So it's like you need to have that content like ready and out almost like a week before the cup even happens for people to really care about that info.
Right. Interesting.
So it can be really tricky because like you're still trying to hammer out all the kinks. You want to give people the good information. You want to know what all the different PvP breakpoints are, which is insane sometimes to even try to do. You try to like basically solve the meta before it even begins so you can tell people about it. So it can be very nerve-wracking. And I've definitely seen like creators get burnt out from it. I've gotten burnt out from it myself because it's just a lot all at once. And then once the meta starts, there's usually like that one Pokemon, and if their like attack IV is this and their defense IV is that, then it completely subverts like half the information you put out there, and you're just like, great, yeah, of course, yeah, that's a thing. All right, here we go. So it's really, really annoying, I have to say, to make Silph content. When it comes to GBL content, you usually want to try to have a video on a specific league happen near the beginning of the rotation so you can kind of prepare for it, unless there's like some glitch and then Niantic or Pokemon Go puts GBL on pause for like a week or two or indefinitely, or like if you try to cover the Flying Cup and then they're just like, yeah, the Flying Cup's happening in like 2 months now, so despite that happening, there is a bit more consistency with GBL, so it's a lot easier to make like content for that. And because more people are interested in it, then you also get, you know, a bigger reward. More people view it, more people comment on it. Where when it comes to Sylph content, like if you didn't do it like right away, then like, I mean, you could check my channel and it's like 1,000, 2,000 views. And it's like, yeah, people want to hear about what I did with the Sylph Arena. So I don't know, it's a struggle because it's like, I love Sylph, I love the Sylph Arena, their metagames are really interesting and stuff, but making video content for people, it can be very, very hard, you know? Especially, I guess, if you're trying to be big brain about it, you know?
Right. No, I absolutely. And we've seen, you know, kind of the takes on the Sylph metas get flipped on their head halfway through that meta, you know, where it's like, all right, well, all of a sudden there's going to be relevance here where, you know, you get that first to publish video out, you know, ahead of the game, and it's like, oh shit, now all of a sudden Galarian Stunfisk is like the shit. And it's like, I didn't even mention it in my video. It's like, I've seen that happen a lot to creators, and it keeps them on their toes. Where with GBL, I've seen, you know, no one using a specific Pokemon, then a video comes out showcasing a specific Pokemon in GBL, and then all of a sudden I'm doing my sets, and I'm seeing this Pokemon like crazy, and it's like, oh shit, they definitely saw that video that I just watched, because they're like using it the same way. And it's like, I kind of love this kind of juxtaposition between Sylph and GBL from a content perspective, because they are so different. And the audience, while there may be a lot of overlap from the Sylph viewers over to GBL, there's not necessarily the crossover from GBL over to Sylph. So it creates this weird dynamic of PvP content that it definitely keeps creators on their toes. That's interesting. Now, those two things, it kind of leads me into another thing I wanted to talk about, and that was Reddit. Because when you look at social media, you have Twitter and you have Reddit. They're two social media platforms. There's tons of coverage of PvP on both of them, but they behave very differently. And, you know, I know that you had started doing stuff on Reddit back in the day. How do you think that those two things survive and coexist from a social perspective? Do you think that the Reddit scene is the same as the Twitter scene, or is there a big difference, you know, between those two?
So I'd say, yeah, definitely a little day and night between, you know, Twitter and Reddit. I'd say on Twitter, there's definitely a lot of love, a lot of positivity going on. On Reddit, people can get like pretty salty and entitled about stuff pretty quickly, or, you know, entrenched in some sort of argument or whatever. So it's a little bit different. Like, I could post an infographic on Reddit, and then like it'll get just downvoted immediately by somebody, I don't know who, you know. And then like a lot of the comments are usually just directed towards like criticizing one aspect or another about it. Where if you post it on Twitter, then people are usually like just sharing it, loving it, complimenting you, and you know, asking questions, and then you're responding to those questions. And I think that's another thing that kind of stands out to me with Twitter, is that I feel like people ask more questions on Twitter, and then you can like respond to them, where a lot of people on Reddit just kind of jump to their conclusions or don't say anything at all. You know, they don't want to ask questions for some reason.
Yeah,
it's definitely two different worlds for sure.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that, because, and then we got to remember too, when you're talking about Twitter, unless someone is searching hashtags and stuff like that, the people that are seeing your Twitter content are people that have opted in by following. So you kind of get that kind of curated community of people responding to your content. So the engagements are typically a little bit more, you know, at the ground level. Whereas in Reddit, you're just kind of putting it out there in the ether, and it's, you know, it's up to where the wind blows of how people are going to react to that. And I think the PvP community specifically is probably the most passionate, the most emotional, the most expressive, and without a doubt, the loudest of any subset community within the Pokemon Go space. If you had to sum it up right now, what do you think the PvP community is most concerned with right now? Like, where do you think their headspace is at?
Fixing the game for sure.
The game just fucking work.
So there's a elderly woman player like in my OG community, Potter Wheelie. She's amazing, and I gave her the swag tips for PvP, and she doesn't ask for a lot. You know what I'm saying? And I knew things were bad. This one day when she just messaged me and she's like, Ryan, what can I do about this like lag issue? Like I can't play the game, and she just seems like the kind of person that'll put up with a lot of stuff. So for her to come to me about there being some massive lag issue at the game, it's like, man, this game's got some lag going on right now.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, like later that day they canceled the Flying Cup or whatever it was and pushed it off because of the massive lag issues, and I was just like yeah. So yeah, if Niantic could figure out how to mitigate the Go Battle lag, that would be appreciated by everybody for sure.
Yeah. And how do you as a creator, persona is always a weird word. I know it's kind of funky to talk like that, but you are a creator, you have influence. How do you approach expressing your feelings about the game's dysfunction? I think that's the best way to put it. Like, do you like, if you have an issue with the game, if you're taking issue with the game, do you just let it all hang out, or do you kind of, have this kind of, I don't even know how to explain it. Do you withhold a little bit of that raw emotion because you are a creator? Like, how do you go about handling, expressing yourself?
Well, I mean, I don't do any of my videos live, so I mean, like I don't record myself playing GBL,
raging, throwing the phone.
You don't get a taste. My girlfriend does. She says I'm a total lunatic, when I'm really into it. Like, I'll just be pacing around the house, like tapping my phone, muttering to myself. One moment I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm a freaking genius, man. And the next moment I'm like, oh yeah, sure. Yeah, of course. It lags right now. And then that happens. Or, oh yeah, of course you caught my charge move. Like, I didn't even see you swap. Like, what gives,
I call hacks.
So yeah, one thing that helped out a lot though, because it sucks being, an angry piss baby, for potentially 2 hours a day when it comes to GBL. I'm like listening to like relaxing music while I do it. If some lag or something bad happens, it's like, oh man, that kind of sucks. But, that's the game, I guess. Versus not using that, I feel like I'm a lot more reactive, or I can get a lot more emotional about the game. So I guess that's my swag tip for people that experience gamer rage. For one, expect the Go Battle lag, because it's been happening, and then maybe listen to some relaxing music, because that could just help you keep your cool. And keep your phone in one whole piece and not in two pieces.
That's it. You got to put on some reggae and just chill out a bit. I like that. That is a solid swag tip for sure. That's a solid one. Now, I have to ask this, and of course I know the answer, but is Pokemon Go PvP ready for the esports world? Like, what's your take on this? Because I get different things from so many different people. Like, some people, they're like, yes, we're good to go, we are an esport. And some people saying like we are the furthest thing away from, something that could be on that kind of world stage. Where do you think the game is right now from an esports perspective? Do you think it has what it takes?
So aside from the Go Battle lag, which is already just, an issue in and of itself, I feel like there's a lot of aspects to Pokemon Go that would have to change dramatically for it to be really considered like an esport. I don't know, like, who decides, what an esport is or isn't, like, who points a finger at a game and is like, that is now the esport. But from what I understand, when it comes to a lot of these esport games, they're usually like a more balanced playing field where, just about anybody can compete, and you just have to have that skill in order to survive. But when it comes to Pokemon Go, there's like so many resources that you have to build up that to even begin to be able to compete with these Pokemon, you have to spend like months of just playing the game to even begin to be able to use Pokemon, at a competitive level. And then when you throw like legacy moves on top of that and event moves and like IVs and trying to, get the good IV Pokemon and like event based levels so Pokemon can fit into specific leagues and stuff, it's just wildly unbalanced to the point where like somebody could start playing Pokemon Go today, just pick up the game and start playing, and it would be very unlikely for them to, be able to, be on the top ranks of the leaderboards or anything like that because they can't get specific Pokemon or specific moves or, they can't get the IVs. So I just think that that is a massive barrier that would keep Pokemon Go from being an esport. When it comes to like Go Battle League and stuff, if Niantic Pokemon Go really wanted to be an esport, they could, I don't know, make some sort of Go Battle Buddy or something so you could like, this is my dream a little bit, but something that you could remotely connect to so then you're not like sending your info up to some satellite or radio tower or whatever. I don't know how any of this works. And then sending it back, you get the server issues. So, they could do some sort of hard fix for that specifically for like playing competitively in front of an audience to have like seamless gameplay, no issues. But when it comes to the resource management and getting those resources and getting the exclusive Pokemon and all of that, I think there needs to be, there needs to be some rubber band there. There needs to be a way for players to be able to get on that level faster for it to really be a fair competitive game.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you look at a game like Halo, right? It's like someone could go to the store, buy their copy of Halo, put it in the machine, fire it up, play competitively, and they're in the same place as the person that's been playing Halo for years. So that makes a ton of sense. And it's like I'm asking this question and not even thinking of that. I'm thinking like, all right, well, what else do we need? Do we need more moves? Do we need status effects? Do we need held items? It's like before you even get to any of that, it's a balancing issue. And I think it was Alfindial who had originally said, this resource issue. And then when I was talking to the guys at Go Stadium, they're like, yes, we need some kind of balancing like the main series games, where sure, IVs will be always there to give slight advantages and give, a little bit of a push to those people that are going to be able to, that grind on that. However, you can come to the battle with level 100 Pokemon or a level 2 Pokemon, and everyone's going to get balanced to level 50, and then you kind of have this consistent, playing field. So, it's I didn't even like backpedal myself to that point to think like, oh shit, this really is a balancing issue. It's not even about like, all right, we need the game to iterate further or we need more mechanics or more features. It probably really does come down to how can this game be balanced for people to just have accessibility? And I think that accessibility is probably the biggest struggle that it would face right now for esports and PvP at large. That's a great point, man. I definitely see that. Now, what do you? Let's just say that the things were balanced. Let's say that there was no lag. Do you think that the PvP needs more features, or do you think that the iteration that we have now is pretty solid? Like, would you like to see something like held items or status effects?
I think if you were to look at Pokemon Go's like battle system and the competition, all that kind of stuff, and compare it to the mainline games, I think Pokemon Go is pretty good to go in a like perfect ideal setting. I think it is pretty in depth as it is. Of course, to maintain interest over time, it would have to add new features, new cool stuff to the battle, to keep interest there. Because if it's just the same game all the time with the same mechanics, that can get kind of boring. But I'd say right now there is a lot of depth and a lot of technical stuff that goes into PvP to make it a more entertaining, spectacle, to make it more on like a esport level, So I think if we had the balance, if we had the rubber band to help people, get on the level of everybody else as far as their Pokemon goes, and there was no lag, I think it could be a pretty entertaining esport.
Nice. Interesting. Got it. Got it. Now, let's as we wrap up here, talk about your content schedule. I know you said that, obviously the world is putting a higher demand on your schedule as a nurse, and by all means, yes, that's definitely a more important thing than Pokemon. But what is your schedule kind of looking like? If it was up to you, how much content would you be creating right now?
At this exact period of time, I don't really want to think about content too much. So I'm not going to be putting out as much content as I used to be, because the world's a little bit on fire right now. So yeah, I'd say, like, as far as what I want to do, my priority is definitely there. For like the next couple months at least, or however long this takes. But I guess in an ideal world, I think the amount of content that I was creating previously was just about roughly where I'd like to be. I think like 3 to 4 YouTube uploads a week is definitely a solid. So yeah, I think I was going along pretty well how I'd like to go. One thing I'd like to like add, I guess, to my creator repertoire sometime in the future would be doing like Go Battle League live streams. I think that'd be pretty fun and interactive. When Swag Tips started, I actually started doing my stuff on live streams on Twitch, but then eventually I kind of moved away from that because like just maintaining my work schedule with a constant streaming schedule got to be a little bit too difficult. And then trying to make a video on a new topic, like the sooner I'd get the video out, the better. So doing a live stream about the topic instead of making a video would just like slow that down. So that ended up being a point of conflict. But yeah, no, going forward though, doing like GBL kind of live streams, I think that'd be pretty fun.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. I would, I want to see this stuff your girlfriend's talking about, the bow.
Okay. I don't know if I'd be able to do that during a live stream. I don't know. I need to get a different setup. I'd have to get like a GoPro with like a selfie stick so you could just follow me around my house just being insane.
Pan to the hallway. We need to switch to the hallway camera. He's in the hallway now.
All right.
That's great. Now, and obviously 2020 has been just an absolute dumpster fire. But from a content perspective, is there anything that you do want to try to accomplish before the end of the year? Any goals?
Content-wise, yeah, I don't really have any major milestones right now in regards to that because I feel like things are going to probably be on pause until like February for me. So, yeah, I still want to keep up with stuff and, be around, be available, make a video every now and then for people. So, but as far as goals with my channel right now, yeah, I don't really have any major goals. Yeah, so definitely an awkward time to be talking about this because like, yep,
no, but
motivations are a little bit different.
But that's the beauty of social media, because even if there's not videos coming out, I see you mixing it up on the socials, so it's all good. You're there, so it's people need a little swag in their life. They know where to find you. It's good stuff. But dude, I think we did it, man. That's a show. Thank you so much for coming on. I definitely appreciate it. And, why don't you of course, links to everywhere that you can find Ryan Swag are going to be in the description, but why don't you let our community know where they can find you and all that good stuff. Make sure you plug your Reddit info.
Oh, got my Reddit info too. Well, okay. Yeah, no, you can find me on YouTube. Swag Tips, SWAGTIPS. I'm the Master Ball with the S on it. And then I'm also on Twitter, but as SWGTIPS. Somebody got the swag with the A, unfortunately. Bastards. So they don't even post.
Isn't that the worst? Post. That's happened to so many people that it's just like someone squatting on their name. It's like, just like give it up.
Right. Yeah, and you can also find me on Facebook, Swag Tips as well. Swag Tips with the A. So... yeah, Master Ball with the S. If you see that, you got the right guy. And then on Reddit, I am Reddit user Ryan of the Day. So yeah, well, what is it? Marketing, branding. Definitely not thinking about that when it comes to the YouTube versus the Reddit. I've seen some content creators like make an all new like Reddit account just so they can be associated with it a little bit better. But you know, it's kind of nice being a little sneaky. You know, people are like, Reddit user Ryan of the day. That is also the swag tips, you know, and everybody knows that. So that can be your special little secret between us.
There you go. Nice. Yeah. Well, Ryan, dude, thank you so much again for coming on the show. We definitely appreciate it. And links to everywhere you can find Ryan will be in the description. But for everyone else, thank you so much. This has been an episode of the Lured Up Podcast Creator Series. Stay tuned for more good stuff coming from the Creator Series. I mean, it's funny, too, that you were saying, you know, with timely stuff, things change. You try to get stuff out. I've got an episode of the podcast of Lured Up where, you know, there was an embargo change where I had to, you know, the date went forward like 2 days. I'm like, all right, I'll just delay this episode. And then now they're like, okay, it's delayed indefinitely. It's like, fuck, what do I do? It's like, I already recorded the episode. But, you know, just make sure you stay tuned to our channels for everything. This episode will definitely be across podcast services and YouTube. But Ryan, once again, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, keep training, trainers. We'll see everyone next week.